This is the Power Break Podcast number 023, an interview with Jim Rudolph. We hope you'll stay tuned as we seek to give you a little power in this break to help you succeed in the race of life. The Power Break Podcast interview program brings out stories of perseverance to encourage you to keep pressing on in the race of life. For show notes from today's podcast, go to bobbrubaker.com and follow the link to the Power Break Podcast. Today's show is number 023. As I welcome my friend Jim Rudolph to the program. Welcome, Jim.
Morning, Pastor. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, and it's good to have you on the program.
Thanks for having me. What an honor.
Jim Rudolph is, of course, with Veterans Funeral Care. You started that.
Yes, I did.
In what year?
2001.
2001. So you are well into your, the 18th year
18th
now.
year,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. Tell us about it. How did you start Veterans Funeral Care?
You know, I had moved to Atlanta. My granddaughter is a seventh generation Clearwater native. So I decided that I didn't like humidity very much, and I thought Atlanta would be a better choice. Was up there for 5 years and realized, I think I want to go home. So I came home and I was thinking, what in the world am I going to do to differentiate myself? Well, my dad, I was raised in an Army home. My dad was not career military. He actually lost a lung and was medically discharged, and he's buried in Florida National Cemetery. But because I was raised around military things, I realized I know how to speak that language. I understand that culture. So Veterans Funeral Care was born. And I decided that I was going to reach out to veterans, retired military, and frankly, since I'm an evangelical Christian, I also knew that I was going to reach out to pastors, my own people. Mm-hmm. So that's how we started.
So that was your focus. Your focus has been through veterans, and also just anybody can come to your funeral.
We have people that are not veterans that call all the time and say, you've done 2 or 3 memorial services in our church, or friends of ours have used you guys. My husband's not a veteran. Could you help us? Absolutely. We help anybody that calls us.
So I take it when you start a business, though, there's probably some lean times.
Oh, goodness. Yes.
How did you persevere?
Well, you borrow a little money, and at the end, when that borrowed money is gone, you better have a business.
Yeah.
And faith, you have to believe every day that the footsteps of a righteous man are ordered by the Lord. And if you feel like you're called, and this is your, for us, I believe, for us that are not in full-time ministry, our work is our ministry. Our work is what we're called by God to do. So you have to trust that calling was real, and God's going to bless you as you work to minister to people.
How is the connection? I know that you've told some stories, and maybe we can get into that. Some stories where you have actually been involved with some burial services for veterans all over the country.
Yes.
How did your business expand like that?
Well, in the early days, veteransfuneralcare.com has a very strong, it's called URL authenticity. So when people are searching for help for a veteran to be buried or to go to Arlington or use a national cemetery, we were literally getting phone calls from all over the country because we're first. I have a federal trademark on Veterans Funeral Care, so it can't be copied. And people were calling us from our first death was from San Diego, California. And it was a Marine colonel, retired, who wanted to be buried at Tahoma National Cemetery in Washington State. So if people were finding us, but they would say, we see you're in Florida, we're in San Diego. Is there anybody here that does what you do? No, but we can help you. And very often we would, hire boots on the ground, meaning we would hire a local funeral director to represent us and carry out the services that were needed.
Tell us about that most recent one, or I guess it wasn't most recent, but within a year that you had a little trip to California.
Yeah, that was quite a shock and what an honor. Most people know the movie star, Gunnery Sergeant R. Lee Ermey, and he died April the 15th of last year in UCLA Med Center in Los Angeles. And essentially his family and his agent He's best known, by the way, as Gunnery Sergeant Hartman on Full Metal Jacket, which was an Academy Award winner. That's where he became famous. And so apparently his family had called 5-6 funeral homes all over Los Angeles, and no one could tell them how you get an old Marine to Arlington National Cemetery. They all wanted to call him back after they called Arlington. So they called the Marine Corps, and the Marine Corps gave them our phone number and said, these guys are specialists. And they called us. And of course, we filled in all the blanks and did that without, having to go to the web or make any phone calls, because it's just what we do every day.
Wow. So you're constantly in touch with people all over the country?
Yes. And now, all these years later, I would say that 9 times out of 10, we will make a referral. We actually have a provider network of funeral homes around the country that are either veteran-owned or owned by the families of veterans. So we actually have grown it so that there's a provider network there. Now, obviously, when Gunnery Sergeant Army's family called, we decided we wanted to go out to Los Angeles and do that funeral personally.
Oh, that's quite a story. How has your funeral business grown over the years? I mean, obviously through the veterans, but
yeah, I believe early to bed, early to rise, work like heck, and advertise. Is
that original?
I think that was Ted Turner.
Oh,
the guy
okay.
that started. That's where I heard it. The guy that started CNN and the Atlanta Braves. We definitely try to mix and mingle with people that are like-minded. God's grace, hard promotion, always do a good job. There's nothing more important than taking care of your customer. When the cheapest way to grow your business is take good care of the customers you have today, and then they will tell other people. So that's how it happened.
I think that's been your trademark, because I was very impressed with all the details that you've taken care of when I was involved in a funeral that was done here at this church, and everybody commented about that your Veterans Funeral Care seems to take care of all the details and to do it in a way that really makes the families and the guests feel this is a special moment. Is that kind of like your...
Yes, and thank you for saying that. I was raised, when I became a Christian, I was Baptist, grandparents Baptist, and then I married an Assemblies of God girl. So most evangelical families opt to have a church funeral. So Veterans Funeral Care, we actually promote something called a church funeral plan for our non-veteran customers, and that's how I met you through Joe Lane, and so that's our tribes, if you will, our veterans and evangelical Christians.
How has the Lord been involved in your business?
Oh, well, we make it clear up front, even with new staff coming in. You don't have to be a Christian, but you need to know we run our business according to Christian principles. And dependent upon, we dedicated the building when it was brand new, had our pastor come over, and we had an official dedication ceremony, and I'll never forget it. It was, God, please bless the hands of the people that work here to touch and help the hurting people that we will be working for.
What an attitude. I love that. That's great, because it does come across
Yes.
to people.
Yes.
So take us through the process, because I know that sometimes people struggle when they have a death in the family. What's the first thing you do? And of course, when you're in a hospital and a loved one dies, the first question they ask is, who do we call? What funeral home do we call? What is the process like?
Yep, we get a telephone call, usually from the nursing supervisor, if it's in a hospital, or a hospice worker, if it's a in-home death, and there's always a couple of staff members who are on call 24/7, 365.
Wow.
Because somebody's got to go help those folks. So we're driving to the hospital, or we're driving to the home if the death has taken place there. And that is a trauma for the families to see mom or dad leaving their care and going into our care because they realize this is the last time they're going to be at home. So it's sensitive, and it's got to be handled that way. But you've got to take your time. You've got to be compassionate. We always make it a point to look the survivors in the eye and tell them your dad's in good hands with us. He'll be treated like family. Make an appointment and usually sit down with them the next morning.
Okay. When people come to you and they I know that many times I know this is not how you do things, but many times people go to a funeral home and it's like a used car sales. Unfortunately, that's what happens. And I'm not calling names, but I know that's been the story of many people. They feel like that.
Yeah, it is unfortunate in my view. There are 7 corporations in America that are now buying funeral homes and cemeteries, just no different than corporations who buy nursing homes and hospitals. So death care is and they're buying the biggest names in the cities that they buy in. And they definitely put in sales training, and the goal is corporate profits. And you as a pastor, you see it. There's a difference in a family owned and operated funeral home as opposed to one that's owned by a corporation. Yes,
I know on your website that you don't hold back about the fact that you're not going to be the highest price around. Matter of fact, you're probably the lowest price around. How do you operate like that, Jim?
Well, we're actually not our prices are affordable.
Okay, that's the word. Yeah.
It's affordable. There are people out there. I always tell people in any city there'll be an attorney that charges $500 an hour, and there'll be many attorneys that charge $250 or $300, and then you'll find an attorney that charges $75 an hour. Beware of the one that charges $75 an hour. So we're priced affordably. We want to have compassion and we want to help people. And if we've been there, especially if we've been their funeral director before during the during the financial crisis, we had a lot of people that had issues, and we would meet them in the middle. We would do what needs to be done. No different than you would. We want to help.
Have you ever had a moment in your lifespan as a veteran's funeral care that you got up in the morning and said, I don't think I want to do this anymore?
No, I haven't. I enjoy it's one of the. I didn't count on this. I can't take credit for it. I started veterans funeral care because I knew, just like if you're Puerto Rican, you're going to speak Puerto Rican. If you're Chinese, you will speak Chinese. So when you meet people, other Puerto Ricans, you're going to speak that language. So I knew that I knew how to talk to veterans, and I understood their benefits, and I understood their lifestyle. What I did not count on, Pastor, that was a total plus, was the story value of working in the military community, the things that these guys and gals have done for God and country. They look like normal people, but some of them have done some spectacular things for God and country. When you're looking at their military paperwork, people with silver stars and Purple Hearts that you would just never guess.
Wow. So that has kind of given you an additional motivation for your business. The
story value of the people that you meet is amazing.
Wow. On the average, how many funerals do you care for in a year?
It's 60, 70 a month. And, of course, you have to remember, in Pinellas County, and we're in Clearwater, this is the number 2 cremation market in North America. So 80% of the people that die in Pinellas County are cremated. That doesn't mean they won't have a ceremony. Most of them do some sort of a celebration of life, a memorial service. So and then we still have a small portion of people where we actually send the whole body back up north, Dayton, Ohio, Grand Rapids, Michigan, wherever they're from. Some of them want to go back and be buried at home. So it's 60, 65 would probably be the average every month.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
Busy.
And as I look at that, that's just phenomenal to think about that. But when you're doing a good business and you're treating people right, the word gets out.
It does.
And
good or bad, the word gets out. So it's your choice. We very definitely believe in. Most people have heard of customer service. Fewer people have heard of customer experience. And typically in the world we live in today, customer service is an 800 phone number that people can call when they're unhappy with something.
And they get put on hold.
That's now you're madder.
Yeah.
So customer experience is actually planning for, what kind of an experience do we want our customers to have when they call on the phone, when they come in the front door, when they're being met in the lobby, when they're being helped in the conference room. Mm-hmm. So we have a planned customer experience that we want people to and sometimes people will say, well, get a little deeper. What do you mean by that? Very often, most funeral homes in America, I think consumers would tell you, they're wearing black suits, it's very formal. People come in, the funeral homes kind of model an attorney's office. We actually are trying to model Marriott. When people come in, we function from a hospitality mentality. And the definition of hospitality is being responsible for someone's comfort while they're in your home.
Yeah.
So that is the way that we try to approach customer experience.
Wow. And you come across that way.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, really do.
Thank you.
Tell me, how many employees do you have?
It's a 14, 15, a mixture of part and full-time.
Okay.
When a funeral home, crematory, with both, is a lot like a fire station. There's going to be some downtimes. Mm-hmm. So you have to have a core staff who's handling, business operations. And then when you have deaths and people are going to have ceremonies, visitations, church funerals, then you're pulling in your part-time staff that helps you on those ceremony days.
Wow. So when you look back at your business, do you have any regrets?
Well, I wish I'd have dreamed a bigger dream. I've had a lot of people that have said to me, wow, I'd love to do what you're doing in Dallas or Los Angeles. And since I have a federal trademark on it, they can't do that unless they buy it. So I still think one day I may meet somebody who will want to take it to the next level and put a veterans funeral care in, one in Los Angeles, one in Dallas. We'll see how that.
But that's not your goal at this moment.
No, not. It's something that could be done, but I have a lot of respect for the guys that started Home Depot. How do you start something, one of them, and then end up with 2,000 of them? I'm impressed.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, obviously, you have something going for you in the fact that the Veterans Funeral Care is known for quality and taking care of people. So that's a good way to advance things.
Yes.
So let's go back at the time. I'm sure that you mentioned how you dedicated this to the Lord from the very get-go. Okay. Have there been opportunities to cut corners or do things unethically?
Oh, I'm always surprised when we read in trade publications where guys get in trouble for doing something wrong, and I wonder what are you thinking? I don't know how you run a business where you hire people and then you make it part of their responsibility to break the law. I don't know how to do that. So does it happen? Sure, it happens out there. All you have to do is Google funeral director goes to jail, and you'll find stories, taking money that's not yours. People prearrange funerals. That's supposed to go into a trust account, and some of them won't do that. So is the opportunity there? Sure it is. But that's not the right way that never works out, Pastor.
Yeah, when you run your business by Proverbs 3, 5, and 6, trust in the Lord with all your heart, lean not on your own understanding, in all your ways acknowledge Him, and He will direct your paths.
Yes.
That keeps you going on the straight and narrow, doesn't it?
You won't be directed on the wrong path on that one. That's right.
Yeah. Well, Jim, it's really been a pleasure to have you on our program today. We will have the contact information for Jim Rudolph and Veterans Funeral Care on our show notes, and we encourage you to check it out. It's veteransfuneralcare.com. It's all one word, and check that out. And although you are located in the Clearwater Largo area, as you mentioned, handle cases
The
from all
entire
over?
the entire Tampa Bay area.
Okay.
From Bradenton, literally to Newport Richey, and all the way over to Lakeland. Sometimes Orlando. People will honor us, and these old guys will say, "No, I want to go to that veterans funeral home in Clearwater." So we're blessed.
You sure are, and you're a blessing to the community and a blessing to the veterans community too. And as you mentioned, those folks contact you from all over the country, right?
They do, and they're part of the fun, if you will, of working with the veterans families is that we, the people, you and I, our wives, all of us, we have hundreds of national cemeteries all across the country. And when a veteran passes away, or a veteran's spouse or a dependent, they get completely free use of the military cemetery closest to them, or they can go back to the one that's, if they moved here from Chicago, they can go to Abraham Lincoln National Cemetery in Chicago, and it costs them absolutely nothing. So they do get significant benefits. Wow. That they don't have to buy property at a local corporately owned cemetery. Mm-hmm. They don't have to buy markers. It's all paid for them. Their funerals, their cremations are not paid for by the VA, but everything at the cemetery is.
How hard was it to get someone into Arlington? Is that how?
It is. There are different requirements. Arlington National Cemetery is a little misleading because it says National Cemetery. It's actually run by the Department of the Army. So in order to there are special requirements to go to Arlington. You have to be retired, 20 years, any rank, any service branch, 20 years, or Valor Awards above, Silver Star and above. So a Purple Heart entitles you to be buried at Arlington and your spouse, Silver Star or above. Or just, you did your 22 years in the Air Force, man, maybe nothing spectacular in your career, but your 20 years also entitles you to go.
How do you feel about veterans?
Oh, they're a unique bunch. They did a lot for us. They're rich in story value. They're patriotic. Hard workers. And for the most part, they're truth tellers. They're Americans. They're involved. It's been very rewarding. That's the word, working with them.
You mentioned that you are involved in the establishment of a foundation for one Navy SEAL. How did that happen?
Most people have heard, or they can Google. There was a bestseller book written called Lone Survivor. It later became a movie. It was so popular, and it's a true story. June 28th of 2005, 4 Navy SEALs, and Matt Lauer broke this news that morning. It was reported that 4 Navy SEALs were in a firefight with over 100 Taliban warriors, and that was true. At the end of that day, three of our SEALs were dead, and one had managed to escape. His name was Marcus Luttrell. So a week later, after losing 36 pounds, Army Rangers rescued Marcus, and the Navy let him write a book because this story had broke and it was already out there in the public domain. Essentially, the Navy decided this would be a good recruiting tool anyway, because it was a story that was hard to believe. So the first SEAL that died that day was from Denver, Colorado. His name was Danny Dietz. And my wife and I, as you know, we like to go to Colorado at the end of the summer. Our anniversary is September the 1st, so we like to go last week of August, first week of September, and we like to go to Colorado. Well, that particular year that I had read the book, I told her on the plane, if you don't mind, I'd like to go by Fort Logan National Cemetery and put some flowers on this kid's grave. So we accidentally met the SEAL's mother and got to know her. She and her husband invited us to dinner, and we went and found that they didn't have a website, didn't have a foundation. She wanted to do those things, and we helped her.
Oh, wow.
So I actually have his uniform on a mannequin under glass. We actually have a pretty good museum in our office, and his uniform is a part of that. Wow. What an honor!
Wow,
for us.
That's a great story.
Yes,
that is great. Just another evidence of the fact that great care happens with Veterans Funeral Care. All right, Veterans Funeral Care, where you get great care. Jim Rudolph and the folks there would be happy to talk to you. You can contact them at veteransfuneralcare.com, and we'll just say we really appreciate you being here, Jim.
Pastor, it's an honor for for you to remember me from Joe's funeral, and I enjoyed this very much.
Well, it's been a delight. Well, thank you for joining us for today's Power Break podcast number 023, the interview with Jim Rudolph from Veterans Funeral Care. Please subscribe to our podcast and leave a review and a rating wherever you have downloaded the podcast. Be sure to check out the show notes, news, books, the weekly Power Break blog, and other things at bobbrubaker.com, and listen next time for the Power Break podcast.